Hi, I'm Mindy Stern.
I'm JD Cargill.
And I'm Michelle Arago, and this is Friend Some and Then Some.
We are three best friends who met over 2 decades ago working in LA's local news scene, and we started this podcast to listen, learn, and laugh. Oh, do we laugh? On our journey to improving the midlife experience through the incredible power of friendship.
And each week we rip back the curtain on midlife, candidly exposing the biggest issues facing middle-aged people, often by sharing the intimate details of our own lives and our friendship. Through expert guests and celebrity interviews, we offer friendship-based tips, tricks, hacks, and solutions to living your best midlife. We are Midlife AF
And Flossom AH.
So here we go. It's Friend Some and Then Some.
We're back.
Happy Tuesday, y'all.
Yes, it is. I love
How
being with you,
are
peeps.
my favorite 2 women in the whole
Bring
world?
back my girls.
Well, my mother probably heard that, and she's like, No. They can be your friends, but
She's your favorite mama. We're your
she's my
favorite
mom.
women.
She's a different level. So
Yeah.
how have you been, Michelle, Mindy? I love you both so much.
You know what?
Wonderful.
I am excited today because there's one of our guests kind of ties us all together in some respects. And when I look back at our friendship that started 20 years ago, like that is a very significant, special part of our lives. And all of our careers were launched in where we came together.
Local
and,
news.
And it became something really special. Out of that, look at this friendship that still, and here we
I
are
call
back
it
on the air.
I call it the University of KTLA.
I
To
love
me,
it.
it was another form of education, and that, we all have this alumni mentality. People who are still there, people who are still connected, and
Still friends with people that are there.
100%.
Which
This
is so
this
fun.
is a therapy Tuesday.
I like
calling it.
I
therapy.
love therapy.
Did you bring your couch? BYOC.
Exactly.
Bring your own couch.
Everybody listening at home, just
So-
relax. Stretch your legs out, make yourself comfortable, and get ready for us to shrink your brain.
We were going to have like a mode of the show, but I think it's going to bounce all over the place because, y'all, we need help here. We need some serious therapy. And
Who doesn't need a
I
little
love
therapy?
it. I
have
love
such
the
a
full
gamut of
circleness of today's
listeners.
show.
I do too.
We all were teenagers at KTLA, and now 20 years later, we are bringing on guests that
In
we
our
met,
mid-30s,
that
and now we need therapy.
That we met when we were just children back at KTLA.
well, so I'll do the formals.
Please
do it.
Please.
Well, she's my muse. I told you, I talked a lot about her in our Women in Entertainment show. Marcia Brandwynne is just one of my best and the best mentor that I have had in my life so far. And she holds a special place in my heart. She was the first co-female anchor with Connie Chung back in the day, which wasn't that long ago,
Mad
you
props.
guys. So, she's been breaking that glass ceiling from the beginning of time. And she's a big advocate for women supporting women. And then she went into a more managerial role in the newsroom as a journalist and took people under her wing and was the executive producer of KTLA Morning Show and brought a real integrity, different point of view. She's so worldly. She's wicked smart. And then she does a new chapter later in life
this.
and goes back to school and becomes a psychotherapist. I mean, she pretty much was everybody's psychotherapist without
Might as
the
well get a
degree,
degree
right?
behind all
so,
that experience.
Someone who's brave, who goes, you know what, I'm going to go this direction and I'm going to bet on myself and I'm going to believe in myself and I can start all over. And Dr. Rick, he was my go-to therapist for the morning show. I was in charge of booking him, and he was a regular. And whatever topic was relevant at the time, he would come on. His specialty is in trauma, and he works a lot with Our House, and he's a grief specialist. And then Marcia, her specialty now is couples therapy. So let's welcome them. They themselves have been friends for decades, and they have an interesting friendship. And let's bring them on.
KTLA friendship.
Hey, Marcia, Dr. Rick.
Dr. Rick.
Welcome to the Friendsome.
You've always been a part of the Friendsome family, but now it's official.
And Michelle, to what you were saying, I'm part of that KTLA alumni.
You are.
That's where Marcia and I first met and worked together and developed this really amazing friendship over the last 20 years. So I'm part of that same group, and I totally adore this woman as well.
Marcia, I think you can say too that a lot of people, I really hate it when people go, oh, I don't I don't mix friends with business. That is so untrue
yeah.
that it can't work. And you can develop the best friends ever through work.
How do you not? That's work is actually where you meet your best friends. I had a friend at KTLA, and I used to think to myself, and I found out that it is true, that when you really love your work, it's not often that you really love the work. You love the people that you have at work. And if you have your best friend at work, you love work. And I had a very best friend at work.
I know, Barbara Lopez Nash. I know exactly who you're talking about.
Working with your best friend. Oh, sorry.
Look at us working with our best friend.
What you said totally triggered me, because I think, well, it makes sense that you would make your best friends at work if you're following your passion with your career, because you are all coming together
like-minded.
Like coming together towards a similar passion or so.
I think we need to change the word. I'm going to go to play instead of work. I'm going to go to play and make some happen.
I think you can make it work. I think people dance around that and say, oh, it doesn't work, I don't mix it, but that's just an excuse for bad behavior. And if you recover from things, we've literally only had one fight in our friendship, and I don't think.
And it was over me.
There's always
who's closer friends with JD?
Actually,
no, it's me. No, it's you.
Who's your favorite, JD? Who's your favorite? Me or
really
Michelle?
possessive. But
I had one fight with Rick.
Yes, I want to hear about this.
Let's hear about it.
I was the boss, and I was trying to produce a show, and I mean, now that I think about it, I was really rude, because I said to Rick, hey, I want you to be more like Dr. Phil. Remember that?
I do not remember that. I honestly,
you're too
nice,
intellectual. I said, come on, you have to talk about yourself, and you have to make it kind of personal. And you know what you said? No, I can't do that because I have patients and they're not supposed to know about me. I said, well, then you can't be on TV.
Oh,
whoa.
Man.
Wow, that's so interesting. I have no recollection of that story.
Denial.
Because the story that I remember personally is at this juncture, Giselle Fernandez was the anchor.
Another friend.
And at the last minute, she wanted me to change the story that we had prepared to do. And I said, hell no.
Good for you.
Oh, wow.
and that was the way I remember that we parted ways, Marcia.
And how long did we part ways for?
What's that?
How long were we parted ways? We liked each other so much.
I don't remember, but obviously the better part of our relationship has been fantastic.
Together.
Well, actually, I think I called you to be on the show again. And you said, okay, I'll try to be more open about myself.
I would be more like Dr. Phil, but I'm too busy combing my hair.
Yeah.
Okay. So who has the time?
You're too sexy to be.
That's a nice, healthy head of hair for anybody listening on a podcast.
But you guys also went from boss booking relationship to being on a show together. You created a web series called Sound Advice, which is my favorite title of a show.
Best name ever.
You better trademark that, okay? So you guys are just you have these parallels in your lives. Speak on Mending Fences. What would you give a takeaway for one of our listeners, or how, like, if we were to have a riff or something, what's your best advice on extending that olive branch or mending fences?
Especially between friends.
Yeah. What do you think, Rick?
Well, I think that it's not that complicated in some ways. What it means is being able, if you've made a mistake, to tell your friend that you're sorry. If they've been bruised or hurt by something that you said or did. People often have a difficult time doing that. And certainly on the other end, being able to forgive. We all make mistakes. I think that I think that if a relationship is new and it's young and it doesn't have a lot of equity yet, young relationships can be broken very easily. But if you've had a relationship where you've built a lot of trust and affection for each other, you're going to hit bumps in the road, and those are just small withdrawals in the big picture. And I think having a perspective when those moments happen in friendships and all of what you valued with each other, hopefully, is what will get you past that moment in time.
Yeah,
you know what? I'm going to say this. When two people fight and they turn on the stonewalling department, they become unable to talk to each other. Generally, it's because they're afraid of their own rage. You have to look inside yourself, because you feel so angry and you feel as if you could tear somebody apart, really, and you're fearful of your own anger, so you go off on your own and don't say anything.
So that's the silent treatment. The silent treatment is really like burying your rage, or at least like delaying it, letting it
come to grips with your own anger, and you can see that anger, keeping it up is really fruitless. Then you can make things happen. The other thing is that, when I deal with couples, you have to know what are people really angry at. People are never angry at what they're talking about. They're always angry at something underneath.
Yeah, and if they keep arguing, it eventually comes up, like the thing that they're actually upset about.
What is the root? Well, I like we talked about earlier about, childhood and how you sort of, you learn and unlearn behaviors, right? And what you saw in your parents' dynamic. What I saw often was, I can't tell you, and this is so dangerous, but how many times we were in a moving vehicle and someone tried to get out of the car, like that whole power move of I'm leaving this situation, or the walk away. Have you ever heard that?
I've almost jumped out of a moving car.
Like, oh, there you go again. Just walk away when I'm not done with this. Is that a power move, or is that what is that with couples when they do that, or in a friendship?
Well, I want to hear about this, Mindy, what happened in the car. But first, let me just tell you that I used to threaten divorce every time I was pissed.
Oh, yeah.
My husband, who had a great personality, one day he said, would you stop it? You're never leaving me. I don't want to hear it anymore.
Yeah.
And he said, we're going to be together forever. So that's that. So don't say that anymore. It just makes me angry. And I never said it again.
Good for him.
Good.
Yeah.
Wow.
And good
she
for
drew
you.
a boundary. I mean, I've heard that too, Marcia, and you probably agree with this. I've heard, don't ever use those words to threaten the relationship, because that's just like that's the
divorce,
bomb.
the
It's
big
just
D word.
Absolutely. And unless you really mean it, but
Yeah.
I do see couples, I saw a couple recently, he used it all the time, thinking that shock therapy would finally motivate her to change.
Oh.
And yeah, I think that as you said, Mindy, I think unless you really mean it, you don't threaten that the relationship is over or you're heading for divorce.
It's too nuclear. It's like,
So
where do you
when
go
we're
from there?
talking about friends, let me just say this. First of all, married couples really do need to be friends. That is the basis for any good marriage. A person who likes the other person for who he or she is,
Yeah.
that not what they can give them, but the fact that they care about that person's well-being. And one of the things that Rick and I have sort of been trained in the John Gottman method. And when you get into a fight with somebody, especially a husband or a wife, you really need to have a repair mechanism.
Yes.
And a lot of times a repair mechanism goes a very long way. Humor is usually the best repair mechanism. If I would get into a fight, for example, with my husband at night when I got into bed and I would be silent, he would get into bed and he would start to touch me on the shoulder like a bear. And he'd say, talk to me. Come on, you're not going to be. And he would make me laugh so hard that I couldn't be mad.
Oh my God.
Somebody though always ends up being in that role as the icebreaker. Or is there always that one person who goes, come on, what are we doing?
Or if there's two people
the
really
one
stubborn.
who's the
I've had
jokester.
3-day silent treatments. I've had.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
I'm
that would be
very
torture
stubborn.
for me.
3-day silent
Nikki,
treatment.
is that you? Is that what you do?
We have, yes. And
Oh, so
I'm afraid
both
of
of
my
you
own.
did the
No,
silent.
we both were like, I'm not talking.
Really?
3 days. Yeah. Yes.
I love that.
Well, that seems like such a
The
nasty
wisdom of
power
middle life.
struggle.
Midlife.
It's a waste of
Power
time.
struggle, yeah.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
is.
What a terrible strategy for the.
We don't do that anymore. I will say that was early on when we were learning about each other, and we've never done that in 5-6 years now, at least. I mean, but there was a time when it was just like
Well, it could be a
power
battle
struggle.
of wills.
It was about, and we both have really strong wills.
Right.
Two alpha people.
I'm not giving in.
Do you remember, Mindy, what it was about the thing about yourself that was so angered and unhappy at whatever the problem was? You remember?
You know what? I can remember the gist of things being like, this is so unfair. And I'm so mad.
Libra.
Like I am like, this is not, I go back to, I don't know how much that plays into worlds, but I believe for me that I am very about a fair and balanced exchange and relationship. And I just felt really, it was very unjust and I was just mad And so
That enrages a Libra, by the way.
Oh,
That
well,
is a
interesting.
trait of a Libra.
Well, that
If
makes a
there's
lot of sense.
The justice, that's the woman, the justice.
So,
And if
but Mindy, were you not able to say that to your husband at that time?
That
maybe
what?
he didn't care that it wasn't unfair.
This just doesn't feel right. This doesn't feel fair. I don't like the way I'm
Yeah,
being
we
treated.
talked about, I mean, we have come so far, and we laugh because we're like, look, it's not been perfect, but it's been perfect in its imperfection because we have worked through so much. I mean, gosh, we've been married almost
20 years,
18, we've been together 19 years now, and it's better than it's ever been. And we are so proud that we've worked through things. I mean, he and I both speak publicly about the fact that I came from a relationship. My parents were married. They still are, 56 years. I never saw discourse. I never saw a fight.
she
I
grew
never
up in
saw making
Disneyland.
up. It was Disneyland. So that kind of crippled me a little bit because I didn't know how to deal with conflict. Whereas he was, had divorced parents, an alcoholic father, had to fight for a lot of stuff and was really scrappy. So when he was scrapping, I'm like, it's over, and he's like, what? I'm like, we're fighting. He's like, no, we're not. I'm like, yeah, so we had to get through that because, I had to get a little tougher and realize it's not the end all be all. It's just, we're just disagreeing. And then we had to get through it.
Some people like to fight. It's like a showing of affection. Like, I'm going to fight for this. Or, some people get an adrenaline rush from fighting. I know my parents are almost addicted to now that dynamic where they're
That
like,
can happen,
something's
can't it?
wrong, we're not fighting, and then they just make something up so they can show each other this familiarity. They get so caught up in role of having angst with each other.
Yeah,
It's almost-
usually people who like that kind of anger and adrenaline are people who have attention deficit disorder.
That may be
Might be
true.
a few of those in this studio. me in particular.
That's what I'm doing.
I had a question for both of you. You're both incredibly successful psychotherapists, and Dr. Rick, you focus on trauma and grief, and Marcia, you focus on couples. In both of those scenarios, because this is a podcast about friendship, I'm curious, what is like the number one issue that people bring to you dealing with the friend, whether it's in trauma with a friend or couples with a friend?
Couples are friends.
Oh, in couples.
Like, I mean, an outside friend, not either of the couple. Like, what is the most common thing for you, Marcia? Like, if a couple comes in with a complaint about a friend situation, is it your friends are taking up too much of your time? Or, I'm just curious when that happens in therapy.
Yeah, well, let me just jump in for a quick second, because to that question, I'm not saying this happens all the time, but right now, the circumstances that I see are a number of people that are coming in about affairs, and the partner is having an affair with the other partner's best friend. And I now have several people in that circumstance right now. So you want to talk about trauma and friendship and really the betrayal that people go through in those circumstances, and feeling both betrayed by their husband or wife, and of course betrayed by somebody that they thought was their dearest friend. And it's
how do you deal with that, Rick? How do you deal with them? How do you
recover from that? Like, really?
It's very difficult. I would say of two of the couples that I can think of right now are headed for divorce. One has been working on it for about a year and a half, and it's been brutal. And I think that, look, it's such an obvious takeaway, but in terms of infidelity and the impact on friendship, whether that's marriage or an outside friend who's gotten involved, it really is one of the most devastating and traumatic things that I see, and I'm sure you do too, Marcia. And it's
such a deep
Are
betrayal.
you saying that you've seen a rise in that kind of activity?
I don't know that it's been a rise, Mindy, but it's certainly in terms of my practice
Right
and
now.
the number of people that I'm now seeing in that circumstance, it's unusual.
I wonder if it has something to do with the fact with this pandemic, people aren't out
The bubble.
socializing and they're just in their friendship bubbles. And so the only other option is the friends that are hanging out with you, the close
Blurred
friends, the close
lines.
families.
It's a good theory, except that these affairs happened before the COVID.
Oh, well, never mind.
I guess it's as good a time as any, Mindy,
Right.
without me and Glenn. All right, we'll just get into it.
Well, remember the famous situation with Shania Twain. I don't know if you remember that, where Shania Twain, with her husband, and sung many songs about him, was so in love with him, and he had an affair with her best friend, and then they stayed together, and then the husband of her best friend and her joined to console with each other through their betrayal, that they became a couple. Did you guys remember that whole story?
Oh, that's
so
right.
they were victims
So they
of
swapped.
betrayal,
They swapped.
and they came together to just help each other through it, and then they became a couple.
The ultimate
Yeah,
revenge.
I'm not familiar with that story. I've heard of people doing that, basically to get together to now punish the husband and wife who betrayed them.
Oh, yeah, that may be the motive. You're right.
Turned around as fair play, but yeah, usually that's not going to happen.
You must hear everything.
Marcia, what do you think about what the term broken people or hurt people?
Hurt people hurt.
What I mean, now that I am a divorcee, sounds so weird, but many people try to matchmake me, and I've said, I'm not really interested in someone who hasn't been down the road that I've been, where most people would, when I was younger, was like, I don't want any baggage. I don't want anybody that's had kids. I don't want someone who's been married. But now in my midlife, I'm like, wait a minute. It's sort of like an experience that evolves you as a human being, and the pain and everything. What do you feel about that whole hurt people, or find brokenness?
Well, I think people who have had problems in marriages need to understand why the marriage went sour. And the next step is to see that you're not marrying the same person in another bodysuit, because that's what generally happens. We are programmed from childhood to find people that feel familiar to us, even in the neurotic, especially in the neurotic parts. And so if you're looking to a person to help you get through all of the childhood hurts that you've had, you're going to have a difficult marriage. So you have to make sure that you've worked on yourself before you get out there to meet someone else. That would be my biggest advice.
It's like, don't find the right person, be the right person.
So how do you break that pattern,
That's
though?
a nice thing. I like that.
That
I
is
think
good.
I agree. I think that's a great line. I love that.
So
I love that. Put that down, Michelle. That's a
Don't
good line for you.
find
to
the
use.
right person, be the right person.
That's right. And when you are the right person, that's when you meet somebody.
That's when you attract the right
This is
situation.
literally the exercise that the last time I was in therapy was in 2017.
An hour ago?
And besides this one, the last time I was in a session, no, I was because I felt like I was struggling so much as a then 39, 40-year-old man, like still struggling with love. And what am I not doing right? And am I looking for the wrong people? And the first thing my therapist said was, you need to stop dating so much. Calm down and at least give us 6 minutes for you just to fall in love with yourself.
6 minutes?
6 months.
That was a lot. It took you,
But I
take
did
you
it in
very
6
long.
minutes. And here's what I want to talk about. Study, kids. You'll do well on
That's
tests.
good. That's good therapy. One
Yeah,
session,
exactly.
you're done.
No, but I'll tell you this much. I did it. I followed, because I am a good, rule follower. And I didn't date anybody for 6 months. And then this was the summer of 2018 now. And then the next thing the therapist said is, if I'd ever consider getting a dog or whatever, this might be a good time to now try to love outwardly. I did that, and a week later I met George.
Ah, I love that.
He adopted 2 dogs.
Lucy and
They were a
Ethel.
twofer. He went to get one dog, and the pound said, no, this is a twofer deal. They can't be without
that was
each other.
the-
And so we
the bait
came
and
home with
switch.
2 dogs, Ethel and Lucy.
That teaches you people
Does.
need people and dogs need dogs.
Dogs need dog owners.
So I have a question. Because people fight, people disagree. I mean, adults, friends, marriages, children's parents. What is the first rule of thumb when you feel like you are being barraged, or like some people like my daughter will yell
Fair
at me.
fighting rules?
Yeah, and she's like, "Don't walk away from me." And I'm like, "When you're ready to have a respectful tone, I will come back." But she's like, "You always walk away. You always leave." And I'm just trying to explain, like,
I won't tolerate
I won't
this.
tolerate this when you and
She has a teenager. Everybody,
13,
let's have a
yeah.
moment of silence for all of us who has dealing with teenagers.
We should have a sound effect
Girl.
for that.
I know, a
Every time we
girl.
talk about teens.
womp, womp,
Carol
womp.
Burnett once told me that she had a doctor who said to her about her teenage daughter, just understand that you have a mental patient in your house for the next 5 years. Just
So
remember
true.
I need a degree in psychotherapy then.
Yeah,
But I do
I'm going to respectfully disagree with that. But
Oh,
sometimes,
yeah, I like
I
it.
like this. What do you think?
They're fighting, folks. Let's see how they work it out.
look at, I think every kid is so different. And I've had one kid who was unbelievably difficult in adolescence. And then I have another son, Alec J. Shuman. And honestly, we through teenagehood, we never had a bad moment.
I've got one of
And
each.
it's just, we've just been very fortunate. So every kid is very different in that regard, but I don't think every teenager is on the brink of mental
No,
illness.
I have one that's
she
perfectly.
was taking a little, you could take that with a light, that's Carol Burnett saying that.
I
Yeah.
love it. The fact that you're even just name dropping. Carol Burnett once told me.
when
Can we just
Marcia
stop and
introduced me to
appreciate
Carol
that
Burnett,
comment
I
for a
died.
moment? Like
Yeah.
1 degree separation from Carol Burnett.
But Mindy, I want to go back to what you said, because I think what you said was really important and insightful. You were talking about people arguing and about how you do that. And I think what you said to your daughter is completely correct. And it's probably the word I use most with couples, and I imagine you do too, Marcia, about and in families. You can disagree about anything and everything, and you can be passionate about it. But I think what you said, Mindy, is absolutely essential, and that is about a level of respect that has to be there regardless. And whether that's with your teenage daughter, your husband, your wife, your dear friend, that is fundamental. And I think for you to draw a line in the sand with your daughter and say, I'm walking away because you're treating me in an unacceptable manner, I think you're being a great person and a great mom.
Wow.
good to know.
All right.
Well, I agree with all of that, but I would add a little bit of
Of course.
not disagreement. It's just another way in
Caveat.
which one might be able to handle this. And that is, I think parents have to be a little bit like psychotherapists, just a little.
Yeah.
When a child is angry and unhappy and is screaming at you and doesn't know, they're dysregulated. There's something that is killing them inside.
Yeah.
And I think if you just say to them, look, I see you're upset. I see that you're angry about something. I see that you are unable to really tell it to me calmly. So calm down, think what you want to say to me. And when you can say it calmly, then we
And
can
let's talk about it.
But you acknowledge.
Give them a
that
chance
they
to formulate their feelings.
Yes, you also acknowledge that they have feelings. One of the problems with raising children, little ones, is that parents don't understand when their child is not feeling good or screaming or in a rage or something. They need to acknowledge that the children are feeling bad.
Mm.
If a child falls down and hurts their knee, it is not a good idea for the parent to go to the child and say, "Oh, stop crying. This is nothing. This doesn't feel." The child
Yeah, don't diminish
Never-
their feelings.
never
needs to
validated.
grow up with his own feelings intact. And if a parent tells the child he's not feeling what he's feeling, the child grows up not knowing who he is. And it's the
Oh.
same with the teenager. Just
I-
acknowledge that they're in a state. You get it. But they need to calm down in order for them to talk to you.
Resolve doesn't happen.
Yeah,
in that
I've always
moment.
heard not to use the words, you're okay, this to not to use that. I would say,
That's a
whoa, that
placate.
must have hurt. Stand up, let's brush it off. Brush it off, okay. Cry it out. We try to make it a quick, fun, like acknowledgement of whatever that pain is. So
Well, and I think to Marcia's point and to the theme of your show about friendships, I think that one of the key ingredients in good friendships and good relationships is, as Marcia said, feeling that somebody's heard you, somebody is acknowledging you, somebody's taking your feelings seriously. And I think that that's one of the most important ingredients in good relationships. Again, you can disagree, but I see your point of view. I understand why you're upset. I don't quite get what I did to cause that, but I do hear you.
recognize.
And that kind of validation, and as Marcia said, acknowledgement, I think is absolutely imperative.
And I think we also, with like our friendships, we play on each other so well because we have different strengths and we have different weaknesses, and we know each other so well. And I think sometimes we don't let our kids be who they are, or we put identities on them that we've created, and a teenager is trying to break free of that, right? And questioning who they are. And that's going to lead me to my word that I had to Google, when Marcia schooled my ass one time.
Schooled you?
She schooled my ass when we were at KTLA, and
You have to explain that I was your boss for a while.
Yes.
And she had every right to school you and correct you. That was her role.
I think what benefited me with Marcia was that I'm from the East Coast, and I think a lot of people, Marcia was on this high pedestal, and her career was high, so a lot of people were afraid of her.
Oh, I was terrified of her.
And yeah,
Power
she
woman.
had this.
Not because she was ever
she
mean
had
or whatever,
this-
just because of her position.
It's like she walked, 2 inches off the floor, and everything she said was always with purpose.
She's
and
like, come on now.
I'm being honest with you, and,
true.
and I would always be like, I'm not afraid of her.
A lot of
I
reverence.
feel like I really appreciate when people mean what they say and say what they mean. I can't stand
Straight shooter.
that whole West Coast soft served kind of communication. So when she would give me a directive, and she, literally, we would do a segment, and I'd run into the control booth looking for her approval like a child. And she would be like, that was a piece of shit. I can't believe I didn't see that before it made air. And then sometimes when I would think something was awful, she was like, Michelle, you're really getting there. You're really getting there. But one time I booked a guest, and she couldn't stand the guest. And I'm like, but I worked with them over the phone, and I'm sure you guys have pre-interviewed, and somebody's amazing, and then they get on camera and they're like, they don't know what to do. They really are afraid of that camera. And Marcia said, he was so affectatious. And I was like, holy shit, I don't even know what that means. And I think now the button word that everybody uses is authenticity, right? Be authentic. People don't like someone that's not authentic. Show your flaws. Be who you are.
So
and
affectatious means?
Non-authentic or being fake, like showing airs. And I learned that. So anytime, and I always say affectatious now and think of Marcia, and I look at people to see if they know what it means. It's really a fun game. But with teenagers in particular and friends, you'll see friends that you've known for a long time, and then they get in another group. Because when we are in midlife, you've got mommy groups, you've got work groups, you've got religious groups, you've got
yoga
all
groups,
these different
workout
identities that you play on to. Yeah, your married couples groups.
Mhm.
And your kids sort of see you change your card, right? So they're watching us be affectatious in different parts of our lives. Yet we have an expectation of them to be a certain way all the time. And I think it's unrealistic. I'm always an advocate. You guys always laugh at me. I'm always an advocate for the kid. Because I always tell my kid, I go, even on a perfect day, being a kid, especially a teenager, is freaking hard. It's hard even on a good day. So, but I try to teach my kids to be non-affectatious.
Look at
and,
her. Taking Marcia's
and be
word.
authentic, right? Be allowed to make mistakes.
Of course, and what you're describing, of course, is the toughest mission. And I think you'll agree with this, Marsh, for all of us is growing into ourselves and feeling the security and safety to be true to who we are, and not putting on a role for other people or thinking that we're here to please everybody else's expectations. But here's who I am. Maybe you'll love me, maybe you won't. But here's what's important to me, and here's who I am.
Yeah.
Well, let me tell you something, guys. You have something very good to look forward to. When you get older, as I am, really old now, one of the nice things, it's about the best thing about being older, is that you finally grow into yourself without fear. You
I like that.
finally don't care what people think of you as much. You say what you want to say. You feel kind about it. You don't have to prove anything. All the ambition that you had seems to have just sort of melted away. You're happy to be who you are. That is the best part of aging. And that is the truly authentic self.
I'm looking forward to
That's
that.
probably why research shows us that happiness peaks again in your 60s
100%.
and 70s and later in
Yeah,
life.
65 to 75 is
When you're happiest.
Is you're comfortable in your skin.
Is the happiest decade. I think there's a lot of different reasons for that, and certainly one of them going to what you've been saying about having young kids. That part of why life gets easier over time is the kids grow up and you have your life back. Marriages take a big dip. One of the biggest detriments to a marriage is kids, and what's called the U-shaped version of happiness. And that U-shaped version,
Bottom of the U.
the happiness goes down as the kids are growing up and you're being distracted from each other, and then it comes back up as they're starting to move on with their life.
Well, hopefully you get to make it through that and
That's exactly.
yeah,
Michelle,
I always say get to the other side, willfully. And you two experienced, this is another, we had a show called Showing Up for Your Friends. And maybe you could give advice about this. You both shared a trauma simultaneously in your lives that were huge. And we have had shows where we go, how do you be a friend sometimes when you don't know what to say? And then people get scared, and then they're actually a really shitty friend in result of their own fears of mortality, or it's too close to their own story. Maybe they lost a parent and it's too close to the fire. Can you give advice on how you two were there for each other in that time?
Sure. Well, you start, Rick, because I think your dad died before my husband died.
Yeah, this was back in 2008, and my father, in September 2nd, 2008, my dad was murdered, and then several months later, Marcia's husband died in the course of his cancer treatment at Cedars-Sinai, and we offered a lot of solace and comfort and support for each other. And I think to your point, Michelle, and it's completely correct, is understanding in those moments there's nothing magical that you can say to somebody. I think that one of my clients used a phrase, he's in training as a therapist, and he talks about being able to sit in the dark with somebody, just being able to be there with them, not having anything brilliant that's going to take away that loss and that pain. Just, I am here with you. I'm sorry. I don't have anything magical I can do, but I love you. I'm here for you, however I can be of support. And oftentimes people say well-meaning, but really ridiculous things to one another at these awful times.
You know, he's in a better place. Really?
Yeah.
I mean, that's ridiculous. There are all kinds of those things that people say.
Or the one I always hate is, everything happens for a reason. And that is one of my pet peeves. There's a lot of things that happen in life that are random. And as the famous book said, oftentimes, bad things happen to good people for no good reason.
Right. Being able to sit in that uncertainty and accept the fact that life is not fair is a huge lesson that contributes to almost all healthy mental things. I have a question for you both.
I'm so sorry you've both been through that.
It's getting warmer. We're in April, it's springtime, and you're kind of coming out of this massive, big trauma, the pandemic. I wonder, what are you guys, what are the concerns that could happen right now with people that would lead them or make them want to go to see a therapist? What are the, as we're transitioning, because I feel like a big change is about to happen. And as this is happening, a lot of change breeds oftentimes conflict or negative energy and fear.
Yeah.
And so what are the big concerns you guys are looking for coming out of the pandemic in terms of psychotherapy? And then what are things that people can do to sort of safeguard against them?
Ms. Marsh?
There are a lot of lonely people right now, and I think what I hear from and I have a lot of young 20s, 30s, and early 40s clients who talk about the fact that they are jealous of anybody who has a partner. They feel alone. They don't know how they're going to meet. They swipe left and swipe right and all of that, and they meet horrible examples of humanity in that. And I think that especially for that group of people, this pandemic has been very hard. It's also been very hard for young people who are wanting careers. I mean, that's going to be one of the biggest problems. How do you get a job in the field that you want? It's really tough for those kids to feel that there's a future. And we do have a changing social and political climate, and I think they feel very helpless.
Lost, yeah.
Look at what did you say, Michelle? Did you say lost?
Lost, yeah.
Yeah, and loss. I mean, think of all of the things that have been lost this year in terms of time. Imagine people going off to college who can't really do that. All of the relationships they would have had, whether they would have met their life partner along the way, people who lost a mom or dad during the pandemic, people whose careers, for no reason, no fault of their own, have been lost. So I think, to your question, and help me out with this, Marsh, and I think your word, Michelle, is right. I think there's so much loss and grief in so many different areas. And I think it'll be years before we understand, I think, the full extent of how this has changed people's lives in profound ways.
You know, you talk about, so when you think about social media, and we're more connected than we've ever been, but we're lonelier than we've ever been.
I think that's right. And one of the things that in both in life and certainly in grief and trauma, it is social connection is so important. And being able to touch somebody else. I mean, people tell me, I talk to some women who haven't been able to hug their kids or their grandkids for a year. I haven't been touched in a year. I haven't made love for a year. I couldn't pick up my grandchild. It's terrible. And there was a 75-year study at Harvard University looking at what is the greatest source of happiness. And of course, the obvious answer after 75 years, relationships, social connections. Those are the most meaningful part of our life. And without that, it's pretty hard to find peace.
Well, I feel so fortunate to have forged these friendships here in a meaningful way before the onset of social media, because I had a talk with my daughter just last night, and she says she knows more people than she's like 500 on Snapchat in different countries or counties and different cities and different schools. She knows more people than she can even count. And yet she doesn't have a single trusted friend because everybody lies, and then you can see where they are. And I said, Brooke, I am so sorry that you are growing up in this time, and I'm trying to help her navigate that, to find trustworthy friends. But these kids, they lie. They say they're going to do something. They don't. I don't know. I hope they grow out of it. But social media allows that. Oh, I'm not here, and then I feel so fortunate to have forged friendships before that world. And I don't know how kids are doing it now.
And think of it, Mindy, in terms of knowing all these people, but still having no experiences together. Part of what builds great relationships is we've had experiences together. We had some great moment. We went on a trip. We had a great meal. We went to that concert together. And absent all that, I'm not sure how you have a deep friendship.
No. Memes.
They don't even talk to each other. They text. That's a world of text. There's no touching. There's communication. You're right. I think the shared experiences is something that bonds us together. And if we can't have any experiences because we're all home, then all you have is text and talk. And
Talk about
you're right. I think it's going to come.
That's the most authentic space.
Mindy and Michelle used to run outside. I saw your friendship bloom. I remember when the fire trucks used to come to KTLA, the two of you were out there
looking for firemen.
There's Mindy snagged one for a few minutes.
We used to do this thing. What was our little molecule?
Oh gosh, firemen. Now I'm thinking through all the connections.
Yes,
fun firemen.
Those two used to dance. They used to have such a good time. I saw that friendship bloom from the very beginning, and it was wonderful.
And I think, as you were saying, Mindy, if you just knew these people through social media, you wouldn't have the kind of love and affection that you so clearly feel. It can't happen.
Well, I think too, missing, we were talking about how do you recover from a fight, but also when you miss someone, when Mindy, JD and I talk about, I don't think Mindy ever realized our personal experience when she left the show, what happened to us. Like, it really messed us up because we were in the same place without her, and she moved on and was in different places. And I made up stories and pitches just so Mindy and I could get on an airplane and go have fun. Right. Like, that was the bulk of my pitches. Like, Marcia, don't you really think I should do a Sex in the City story and move and
we should fly on the Concorde
and go with Mindy? And don't you think the last flying Concorde is an important story?
Yes, absolutely. But I have to tell you, you do have to work at friendship and keep it vital.
Yes.
So friendships can get very stale in the same way that marriages get stale.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But when you miss someone and you honor that friendship, I think a lot of people in this pandemic have valued the relationships more. So I think that is the positive, because maybe you took for granted all those times. Like we just had a huge Zoom with my auntie from Chile who had her birthday, and we realized, oh my God, it's been 1 year. Last year it was like the first Zoom, family Zoom. And I go, but you guys, think about it. We never family Zoomed. So this is a benefit.
Right.
We never had those things. So now we value those friendships. And I think bridging the elderly with the young has been a huge positive from the pandemic. Finally, like, culturally, this country doesn't do well with elderly. And now I feel like, hey, we're
Connecting.
We're connecting.
Well, Michelle, you have to remember you have an elderly and me. So
you call
Well,
Zoom
you and I were like soul sisters. There was no age between us. I mean, yes, the boss relationship, but when you left KTLA, like she named my second son.
Aww.
And we have that bond. And then I told her, you know me, I always get a cry moment, but
Feel those
I
feelings.
always dreamed of having a relationship that Marcia had with her husband, and when he died, it was so hard. And she still to this day calls him my Al. She doesn't ever just refer to him as who she literally claimed him as hers, and they always just regarded each other. Like, what's that? High regard. I've never seen that. I've saw so much strife in marriage my whole life, and to see a relationship where they literally were like so smart and so loving to each other, and
something to aspire to.
Soul was born at Cedars when Al died at Cedars.
Yeah.
And Marcia went from one tower to the next to see.
Okay, honey.
And I know
Why don't we hug it out, right?
trauma.
Trauma is there.
You're talking about friendship and feeling Marcia's love for you and how she was there in this extraordinary moment between losing her partner and then being there for the birth of your child.
I mean, just having
Full
to flip
circle.
that script.
What an extraordinary
Cycle of
testament
life.
to life. Exactly. Like that is the nature of life, is that
Yeah.
you live and then you're born and then die.
And you have to treasure your friendships. Friendships are probably one of the most important things that we go through life with.
Chosen
And,
family. Yeah.
The people
Exactly.
that are there for you. And they don't have to be there in any other way than just to say, I feel what you're feeling.
Yep.
I know I have a feeling that you're hurting, and I'm sorry that you're hurting, but I'm here.
That's amazing.
That's great
And look,
advice.
it has
Thank
no
you.
gender and no age. You guys have been
That's right.
friends. You had, your partners, and you still respected those boundaries and had a wonderful friendship professionally and personally. And us, it's just.
I'll make you one bet that the three of you laugh a great deal, because I would tell you that what Rick and I have is I don't know what goes on with us. I'm about 5 years old when we get
You
together.
get silly.
Yep. That sounds
that's
familiar.
it.
I will tell you that I have
No one makes her laugh.
peed
like
my
JP.
pants more than I've ever been. Because I will need more really high depends as we age in this friendship. Really thick depends.
It's the best thing.
I'll
That's what we
give you a
say.
pair.
We're here to live, love, learn, and grow and laugh. Like that's what this crazy journey
That's
is
our
about.
coping mechanism.
A lot of words there. I want to pick a word.
We want to
'cause
be.
guys,
We want to
let's do
honor
our
your
word.
time. We know you all have a lot of other
All right,
shows
let's
to
do
be
our
on
word.
today.
Rapid fire word,
Okay, I'm
guys.
pulling a word out.
First
Ready?
thing you think of.
Word
when
of the
you hear it.
podcast.
I don't like that one.
What is it? You don't judge it. Just let it be.
Okay. I think it says
Succeed.
there's like 3 E's in
Okay,
there.
Mindy,
Is that
it's my
something
bad
different?
penmanship.
gosh.
That's not the point.
Marcia,
the point
what do you
is
think when you
it
hear
says
succeed?
Succeed. Well, that's a good thing to do, but don't base everything on it. That's
Oh.
what I think. Success is being happy with oneself. I'm telling you, from my age and my vantage point, all of the work that I did to get where I was going, I'm glad I did it. But when you get to a place where it doesn't matter so much anymore, that's real success.
How interesting, because
Oh,
to
I like
succeed for
that.
her initially sparked career, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like if what you meant, because succeed is because you can be successful across all kinds of avenues of life. What about you, Dr. Rick?
The word that came to my mind was, apropos of what Marcia was saying, is about acceptance. And I think that success is about finding peace in yourself and in your life, and being less dependent on how other people see you and judge you. That's what I think success is, when you've found who you are.
Amen.
Can I get a hallelujah in here?
Hallelujah. Where's our hallelujah?
What about you, JD? What's
Success? It's funny because as soon as he said that, I was thinking, if for me to be successful is to be at peace. And what brings me peace was ever since I learned the trick of just accept it. Like, acceptance is the biggest key in my life to peace. And peace is the biggest measure of success for me.
Wow.
Man,
So profound. I don't know. I think that I'm in a constant state of learning. And to me, that's success, to never stop learning. I have a quote that I love. It's called, it's when you're green, you're growing. When you're ripe, you're rotten. Like, the minute you think you know all the answers is the minute you begin to ripe. An apple starts to rot the minute it's most ripe.
100%.
So stay green, because that process, I think, is a successful way of approaching life, because you never know all the answers.
But Mindy, it's not easy being green.
No, it's
It's
not.
not,
easy being green.
but it's fun. Just ask the M&M.
Kermie.
Michelle.
Oh, okay. Succeed for me, the first thing that came in my mind was support. And if you build and cultivate a support system, and I mean by friends, and people who've witnessed an arc of your life, if you're not dumping along the way through every decade of your life, that's succeeding. If you keep those good nuggets around, and you, like you said, Marcia, like almost like just harvesting and nurturing those relationships, and also Dr. Rick said, the young friends you can dump easily, but it's the people that stick around and know you like the back of their hand and have gone through maybe a trauma and those dark times together. That's success. When you have a support system, and God knows these two and a lot of people helped me through one of my darkest times going through COVID recently. And honestly, I think my family was almost too close to the fire. They were so terrified of me dying that I would have to give them support for being so scared for me and my children. But my support was my circle of friends that filled me up more than drained me. And so I say succeed is a support, and make sure you cultivate a good support system in your life. And the quote I found on that, in order to succeed, we must believe that we can. Obviously, believing in yourself and believing in what we're here for is
Good quote.
Everything. But you guys,
Marcia,
I
aren't
feel
you
like
proud
y'all
of this?
should be-
Look at this little chicken. Now she's like the center chair. She's
Center square here in Hollywood
Center
Squares.
square. She holds her own here. She's like such a natural at this. And look at
Wonderful.
And no
you have-
affectation.
You have always, when we saw you and looked at you in the beginning when we were hiring you, we knew how talented you were too.
Oh, 100%.
Oh.
Yay! We love our Michelle. We love her.
She's not affectatious at all.
Authentic, 100% authentic, this girl.
I think that's true. And that's what I always felt knowing you early on, Michelle, just what a genuine person you were. I loved your spirit. I loved your joy. You are just have so much charm about you. You're hard to resist.
Oh,
That's at M.A. Orego, if you're interested in following our lovely Michelle on Instagram.
Irresistible, that
M-A-O-R-R-E-G.
one.
Oh,
And JD
That's
Cargill,
awesome.
if you want to follow him.
And-
Oh, we're just plugging each other. And Mindy Stearns on Instagram. And what about you? MarciaBrandwynne.com.
Yes, and-
just Google Dr. Rick. You'll find him.
yes. We're going to put his
I'm out there somewhere.
Exactly.
He's out there.
And we're going to get that Sound Advice podcast going, and we're going to have y'all on as regulars.
Yes.
That's just going to have to be, because we were going to just focus on one thing, but boy, did we take a ride
Yeah,
today.
exactly.
And that's what life's all about. And we love you guys.
We
Thank
would
you
say
for
that you're
being-
officially in the Friendsome, but you've already been there.
Yeah.
You
So
already were there.
thank you for continuing to stay in that circle. We have been so grateful for you to stop
you.
by with us today.
Thanks for having us. We
Thank you.
enjoyed it.
If
I
I
know.
could pinch you, I would.
You're part of- Thank you for being part of Friends of Mendenza.
Join us
Bye.
again.
Love you guys.
Love you. Did you like what you heard today on our podcast? Or did you like what you saw on our vidcast? Were you watching?
How about sending us a comment or suggestion on any topic you want us to talk about?
We'll have new episodes every Tuesday. Please join in the conversation on our Facebook page, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and follow us on Instagram. You can download our podcast anywhere you get your podcasts. See you next time on
Friendsome and Then Some.